We're right at the end of winter, and you might be thinking, well, what on earth is still growing in a winter garden? Well, I'm going to show you today just how much food is still growing in my winter garden. My name is Bridget, and this is the Sherwood Urban Farm. I find that Swiss chard is the easiest thing to grow on earth. So I have got Swiss chard in everywhere. I've got, this bed is full of Swiss chard, or commonly known in South Africa as spinach. And then all the way down here amongst the herbs is also the rainbow Swiss chard. This is probably almost a 3-year-old Cape gooseberry. I cut it right down and then it comes back up again with all this new growth. I plan on taking it out completely this year, but it has got quite a few little gooseberries on it as it stands here. But I have grown some new ones, which I'll show you over there along the side of the fence, which I would prefer to have them on that side, because what happens with these ones is they grow so big and then they start to flop over, and then I'm not able to grow anything else underneath here. In this bed, I had planted kale, but at that time then the sun wasn't really shining there. It is now, this time of the year. So it was attacked with every kind of aphid that you can think of. Underneath it, I had planted in baby spinach, South Africa. It's regular spinach here. It's also on its last legs, but I can still harvest quite a bit of it. Underneath all this nasturtium, there is still my perennial basil, which I've now just pruned right back. And here we have rosemary. And just look at the size of this oregano. I had pruned it back twice. And it just seems like we didn't have such a very cold winter. So it is still growing great guns. I have got some layered plants at the back, which I still need to dig out. And then I have thyme, 2 more little bushes of thyme. And right underneath here, there is some sage, which has been overrun with the nasturtium. Now you'll notice that this has been pruned back quite a lot. Normally you can't even see the wall for all the blackberries. But I did prune them back. 2 years ago I pruned them, and then they gave the most amazing fruit last year. I made about 10 bottles of lemon cordial from it. It was amazing. And then underneath these blackberries were these huge sweet potatoes. I knew there were sweet potatoes in here. I never planted them. They were volunteers. They came up. And I knew they were there because there was all the vines in that. And I had found a couple of small ones, but I didn't realize that there were these massive ones. The biggest one was like 2.7 kilograms. All in all, it was 10.45 kilograms. So that was a lovely surprise harvest. I took some photos and put them on Instagram. You want to go over there and have a look at that. And then over here in this bed, a little bit of a disappointment. I thought I could overwinter my eggplants, but that has not been that successful. I have got 4 plants left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 plants left, and they're not looking great. I'm hoping now that there's longer daylight hours and it's starting to warm up a little bit, that they will maybe send out some more leaves. I also planted in amongst them, I planted snap peas. And the idea was that they would sort of grow over the eggplants, but it didn't work so well. They are here, they're looking pretty sad. I can't understand why when I plant snap peas in the beginning of winter or late autumn, then they grow beautifully. And if I try and do a second sowing of them, they just don't seem to perform at all. And then I have also got a row of red onions, which are doing great on that side. These ones are a little bit small. I think it's because they don't get that much sun, because the winter sun sort of goes across like that and kind of hits that side, not much that side. And then here under the lemon tree, I have some strawberries, and in this container, and I got more strawberries there. These are some lettuce. They've been in here for a while. They didn't grow as well as I would have hoped. Well, they grew fine, but the leaf texture is quite tough. It's a bit leathery. And then my ever faithful Swiss chard, they just keep growing. You know what is nice about them is I could stick them under the lemon tree. They don't get much sun, but they actually prefer it. These ones are much smaller than the other ones, but that's just because they were a succession sowing. And then I also still have some beetroot in over there, but I've harvested most of those beetroot and I was able to preserve them. I used the lemons from my tree, and I bottled 2 big jars of beetroot, and it's just such a joy to be able to preserve some food for a couple of months time, you know, because I do find that with beetroot in our climate, they don't seem to like, when it starts getting into the middle of summer, then they don't seem to enjoy that heat. This is my polyculture bed, and it's interesting how this has worked. So I have got in this bed, I have snap peas, I've got lettuce, I've got carrots, I've got onions. And what is interesting is that normally I will get these little aphids on the carrots, but now that they're all hidden amongst everything, I don't seem to have any problems with these little carrot aphids, and the carrots are just growing beautifully here. Behind me over here is some more Swiss chard spinach. And now the sun doesn't shine here in the winter, which is why I can still actually plant them. They're a little bit smaller than the ones that do get sun, but once the sun starts shining here, which it already does in the morning, I can already see there's a huge difference in their growth. Otherwise, there isn't actually much here. There's some self-seeded snapdragons, which I'm going to leave. And then I've just covered it, the bed for the winter with the manure from the rabbits and bedding from the rabbits. I'm going to plant my sweet corn in this bed because last year I did really well in this bed. And then I will plant underneath it, I will plant some butternut squash. 2 years ago I did that, and the butternut squash did amazing here. So then I got a brainwave to plant it elsewhere, and that didn't work well. They do well here, so I must just stick with what I know. So along here, this is where I've planted in some more Cape gooseberries, and then I have strawberries in these pots here. And this is the recent addition to my garden, which is the star blueberry. My passion fruit, or we call them guavadillas, granadillas, but this we would call guavadilla in South Africa. I read that we are the only country who calls them guavadillas. Interesting. Anyways, it had lots of flowers. It was massive flowers, and they're so beautiful. And then they all dropped, and I think it's because at a certain time of the year, then the sun is too low, and then it doesn't shine, and it's at the very time of year when it's got its flowers. So it dropped all its flowers, and that was very disappointing. But I have got seed, which a friend gave me, so I'm going to germinate those, and then I will put arches in the raised beds, and I'll have it growing over. Whenever I come into the vegetable garden, I just love this. I only have 3 of those little primulas. The other 3 we put in the front garden, and they are just such a joy. They just flower all the time. Otherwise, I've got in this bed, there's some beetroot, and there are overwintered pepper plants, chili peppers. They seem to do quite fine. And then these are my Williams bananas, the 2 that are there. It's shot out a couple of side shoots. Hasn't fruited yet, but I'm hopeful for this year. I think that we're going to get some bananas this year. And then, so I've got radishes, beetroot, and onions in this bed, as well as the overwintered chilies. I bought from 2 ladies from the Elands River Road. I bought this dragon fruit plant. And she handed to me one night. I think it was even raining. I took it from her and just stuck it down here in the garden. I'm not actually sure how to grow these things. I suppose it should be potted on, but look at that. It's growing little side leaves, whatever they're called. So I'm hoping that after a while that we'll have dragon fruit. I've never eaten them, so I'm quite excited for that. So in this bed this morning, I planted our 12 cocktail tomatoes plants in this bed, and I've still got some radish. I think I'm actually going to sow some more radish underneath the tomatoes, and there's some beetroot over there, and then my little border of thyme. And then in the pot here I have some strawberries, and there are some lettuce in that plot over there. You see, this is the second sowing of peas, and as you can see, they really are disappointing. The leaves are much smaller. It's got some pods on it, but it's not going well. I'm very happy with my Chinese cabbage. They are doing fantastic. The ones that I had planted on this side of the bed were in the seed trays. And then the ones that I planted on this side were in the paper pots that I had made for an event that I spoke at. And I thought I could just plant them straight in, but I think I made the paper pots too thick. So it took them quite a long time to actually get established until they actually got through their roots through the paper pots. And then in the meantime, they had actually struggled a lot with a lot of like snails and, oh gosh, what else was there? Oh, little caterpillars and that. Where this side, they didn't have that at all. There was no pest pressure. There's a couple of holes on the leaves now, I see, but it was mainly on this side. So I just thought that was quite an interesting comparison. Along the edge of the bed, I've got a row of carrots, and then I have some more radish and some lettuce. I love this bed. I love the way it looks with the little rows of lettuces that are so neatly planted. I do like little rows or patterns, at least something like that. They were all volunteers that came out in the bed next to it, and then I pricked them all out when they were tiny, and I potted them on. And then I grew the, this is cilantro or coriander from seed, which I had saved from my garden. So that's always, it's just such a joy to see that as well, when you've saved your seed. So it's like just completed the circle, and here it's back again in the garden. I do so love that the coriander. I could actually eat it with almost anything. I love coriander. And then I have these ones, it's onions. I've got onions along the wall here. They I grew from seed, and these ones are the long day onions. So they're going to take a while still before they will start to produce a bulb. But I'm just quite amazed at myself that I have actually gotten them this far, because previously I haven't even been able to germinate onion seed. And then there was some volunteer lettuce that popped up there, and there's a borage. Got another borage over there. The bees are very busy in the borage. And then this is still, this also self-seeded in the garden and on the other side of the garden. And then I also pricked it out and put it in trays until they were big enough. And then I planted them in here. And they are doing really well here. Well, folks, that's the end of the garden tour. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching if you got this far in the video. And I hope that it inspired you to grow your vegetables over winter as well, because there's a lot we can grow specifically here in the Eastern Cape, because we don't have such a harsh winter. So thank you once again, and I hope you have a fantastic day further.